Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06. It's O'Connor and Company here Thursday morning in your nation's capital. Good day to you. We've got, what are we calling it, Patrice? Walls to walls coverage?
Yes. Walls to walls, walls coverage.
There, well done. I love that. Patrice Onwuka's here on this Thursday as we continue to follow up on apparently a task that nobody in the Harris campaign planned on doing, which was to vet their choice for running mate. And there's a whole lot that's been learned in the last 36 hours. We'll dive into it. Also at 7:05, Brent Bozell on how the media's been covering and ignoring much of the things we're going to tell you. 7:35, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin will be our guest. Talk about how he's got a quaint notion. He doesn't think non-Virginians or non-Americans should vote in our elections, so he's actually doing something.
You mean
about
illegals? Illegal immigrants, yeah.
Or even if you're legally here in the country but you're not a citizen yet, maybe you shouldn't vote. And you shouldn't be on the voter rolls. And they found thousands, not to mention all the dead people. Oh, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Democrat voters who are no longer living. Also at 8:05, KT McFarland on how the world is on fire and we have no president. And then at 8:35, our buddy John Andrasik, Five for Fighting, who's bringing his incredible talent to Washington, D.C. for a concert next week. So that's all coming up. But right now, we're joined by Kurt Schlichter, author of The Attack, senior columnist at Town Hall. He's also a retired colonel from the United States Army and deployed overseas multiple times. Kurt, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Larry.
Listen, there's it's an awful thing to steal valor. Stolen valor is a terrible, terrible thing. You know, to claim that you received some kind of accommodation or a medal when you're serving and you didn't. To say that you deployed in combat when you didn't. It's also bad for someone like me who hasn't served to challenge and question somebody's service because, honestly, I think this is up for people like you, people who are retired from the military, to sort of sort this out. But I do want to facilitate this conversation, and I know you have very strong feelings about this. So your initial take on what it appears Tim Walz, the running mate for Kamala Harris, is claiming about his service, and then what the truth actually is.
Well, Larry, I think us vets need to do the vetting of Tim Walz that Kamala Harris didn't. Of course, Kamala Harris is a borderline clinical moron, and because she didn't take Josh Shapiro instead of this dud.
Well, we know why that didn't happen.
Well, yeah. Can you say Jewish? She can't.
Right. Mr. Shapiro apparently can't.
Well, I mean, yikes. Talk about no bad deed going unpunished. But look, Walz was in the Guard. I spent a large part of my career in the Guard, and he, and that was fine. And during the War on Terror, he got sent overseas to guard with his unit to guard bases in Europe, which is, every once in a while you get kind of a dud mission, though I'm not sure how dud it is to be, stuck in Italy. Well,
let me dive out on this because I want to get to the top points if I can. He was deployed to Italy with his Guard unit. Now, is that part of Operation Enduring Freedom? He claims he was deployed to provide security for Operation Enduring Freedom, and he dropped the word Afghanistan in that C-SPAN interview, which made it sound like it was part of the Afghanistan theater. And yet I've seen documents out there showing that if you were deployed to Italy during Operation Enduring Freedom, you don't qualify for the Global War on Terror service medal. So there is some sort of discrepancy there.
Yeah, there's different things. Okay, try and break it. I'm going to break it down for you civvies. Listen up. Enduring Freedom was kind of the overarching umbrella name for people who went overseas, not to Iraq. Okay, so if you went, and it got associated with Afghanistan. So if you say, I was in Operation Enduring Freedom, most people go, oh, yeah, it was in Afghanistan. But that's not necessarily true. Technically, you could have gone anywhere, to several places in Europe. You could have gone to Kosovo, which I did. I went to Kosovo, and my order said, well, you're mobilizing under Operation Enduring Freedom. But here, Larry, here's the important part. I don't say that to anybody.
I was just going to say, I have heard you multiple times say that you were deployed to Kosovo. I have never heard you use the words Operation Enduring Freedom for how long have we known each other? 13, 14, 15 years. You've never used that phrase before.
Years. And not all the times that we've been together have I not, loosened my tongue with, various delightful beverages. Yeah. So, no, but you don't say it because you go, well, I was on Operation Enduring Freedom. Oh, Afghanistan. Well, I wasn't in Afghanistan. I was in the Gulf. I was in the Gulf War, and I was in Kosovo. That's what I did. I didn't do Iraq after in the Iraq War. I didn't do Afghanistan. I did other things. Right. I don't want people to think I did because I'm not a scumbag. The whole idea of asking somebody, trying to pump up your military resume to take what other people have earned is the whole thing is just mortifying, and I don't want to do that. When people go, well, combat vet. I was a combat. I rushed trucks. Okay, I don't want a normal person doesn't want credit for something he's not due, but I damn well demand it for everything I did do.
Well, Kurt,
which is absolutely nothing.
What I don't understand then is how this wasn't during the vetting process, which we understood took probably a couple of weeks and probably longer since when the decision was made to oust Biden from the ticket. What was the vetting? What would a typical vetting process be for someone who has a military record? I mean, don't you go back and actually check with the Department of Defense on their actual record, what rank they actually had when they retired or left? I mean,
you might want to have somebody know something about the military look at, but I'm not sure Kamala Harris's campaign is packed with a bunch of, military vets. They're very, despite the publicity, there are fairly few transsexuals, weirdos, perverts, losers, communists in the military who would, actually be part of her thing. She doesn't know any military people, and of course, she herself doesn't know what questions to ask. She doesn't know any military people. The closest thing she did is push-ups with Montel Williams. It's not, she's not a. Yeah, she just they just don't know these things.
So even if they tried to vet this guy, there's nobody skilled on their team that could actually properly vet them because they don't know left or right when it comes to a military issue.
Well, exactly, and here's the other thing. She's obnoxious and condescending in the sense that she probably said, well, he was an Army guy. All the Army rubes are going to love him because he was in the Army.
Right.
So I'm going to pick him because they're stupid. If you have a DD-214, well, she don't know what a DD-214 is, but if she, all the guys with DD-214s, they're going to flock to this guy because he was a command sergeant major, which of course he kind of wasn't.
Yeah, you know what?
Which is a whole other thing.
Hold that thought. I want to get to that part of it too, because there's so many questions. The question about whether he actually did serve in Operation Enduring Freedom or whether the time in Italy qualifies for that, and we just sort of addressed that. Then there's the question of his rank when he retired, which it looks like he blatantly lied about. And then, of course, there's the nature of his retirement and the timing of his retirement with regard to his unit being deployed. Mm-hmm. We're going to get into those two aspects of it with Kurt Schlichter, who, by the way, his article at Town Hall just dropped about an hour ago. It's called Veterans Will Not Be Fooled by Tim Walz. It's Kurt Schlichter at Town Hall, and we've got him exclusively right now. But first, it's 5:15.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
There are highly, highly credible accusations of stolen valor leveled against Kamala Harris's choice for running mate, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. And by the way, these charges have been going on since 2007, 2008, it appears. J.D. Vance jumped in on this yesterday as well. He, of course, a veteran of the Marine Corps. He joined up after 9/11. He was deployed to Iraq. Kurt Schlichter is our guest, who is also an Army veteran and a retired colonel. Kurt, please sort this out for us with regard to his rank. He claims, it appears, that he retired with the rank. Sort it out for me. He claims he's the highest-ranking non-commissioned officer to be on a ticket or to serve in Congress. He says he was a command sergeant major, but that's not entirely true, is it?
Well, he was a command sergeant major-ish, and if you know what a command sergeant major, that's pretty impressive. Okay,
yeah.
This is the guy, when I was commanding a battalion, I had a command sergeant major. He could shut the door and say, Colonel, you are screwing up. Nobody else got to do that. Command sergeant major gets to do that. He is the voice of the enlisted soldier. He is his advocate and protector and the guy who enforces standards. He is the man. So it's a very prestigious gig. And he was kind of had that. Kind of. He was what's called frocked. It's kind of very rare, but you're allowed to take a higher rank contingent on doing some things to earn it permanently. In his case, he had to finish the Sergeant Major's Academy, which is competitive. You don't just, it's not like community college. You're kind of like Harvard. You have to beat other people to get accepted into it. If you pass it, you are qualified to, become a command sergeant major. He quit.
And if you quit before completing that, you don't actually retire with that rank. And in fact, the Army has clarified this.
One rank down.
In fact, I remember this with you. Didn't this sort of happen to you? I remember when you made full bird colonel, because I first met you as a lieutenant colonel. Then you became a full bird colonel, and I said, so you can retire as a full colonel. And you said, in 2.5 years or something, right?
Well, I also had to serve 3 years as a colonel before I could fully retire as a colonel. It's a little different on the officer side.
Okay.
He retired as a master sergeant. And here's the thing,
which is still great. I mean, you tell me you're a master sergeant in the Army, I'm going to have a lot of respect for you.
Yes, that is a full career. You retire as a lieutenant colonel in the Army. That is a full and complete career. You have been successful. You've done your job. Good. Here's your watch. Now off to other things.
Right.
And you have not. The thing is, he had nothing to be ashamed of. He just pumped himself up. For instance, when he was in front of a gun grabber group explaining about those evil M16s and AR-15s, there's no reason why people should have a right to carry the weapon I carried in a war. It's like, okay, scumbag, what war? And didn't you take an oath to protect the Constitution rather than trash it? You communist piece of crap.
Wow, great.
Okay, so he's out there saying he was in a war. Dude, okay, look, he wasn't in a war. And you don't have to be. There's lots of guys who go through their whole career and they're never in a war because they're just in a different place. And there's nothing to be ashamed of it. And also, when you're in a war, look, I washed trucks in the Persian Gulf War. Okay, I wasn't Rambo. I wasn't even Rambo's cousin Chet. Okay, but I went where I took care of my troops. I did my mission. Obviously, good enough to get promoted to colonel, which is a thing. It's okay.
And you were proud of it.
I am very careful to make sure. Well, I did my job. I'm not. I'm spectacular, but I did what I want. But me and most vets are very careful not to claim anything we didn't do. For instance, Larry and I were out once with Chris Plant. I was wearing a lapel pin of a Legion of Merit, which is a medal I earned. And Chris Plant looks at me and goes, "Oh, where did you get a Purple Heart? It looked like a Purple Heart. I have never worn that lapel pin again."
Right. I remember that.
Patrice,
the interesting thing that I've found about people who actually have really amazing and impressive military careers, Patrice, is that they tend to bend over backwards to downplay it. Because if they have impressive military careers, they have come in contact with people who are that much more impressive. Yeah. And they know that they don't want anyone to think otherwise. And that's what makes this Tim Walz stuff so glaring. Come on in here and ask if you want to get Kurt
Yeah,
on.
I mean, my question is the bigger picture here. Is this going to sink the ticket? The way, John Kerry, he was lambasted, rightly so, for embellishing his military record, back in 2004? Is the electorate that removed from war that people are just going to say, oh, this is not a big deal? Or is it just going to be kind of a big deal among conservative circles, Kurt? Because, to me, I think lying about your military record is nasty and disgusting, and it speaks to your character in lots of other ways. Plus, he's probably the one to bring the foreign policy chops to the ticket, and that, I think, is even questionable, too.
Well, look, the regime media is going to run interference and go, well, you're swift voting him, which is unfair because John Kerry actually went to Vietnam. But you know how close Pennsylvania was 20, 30,000 folks. There's 900,000 vets in Pennsylvania, and 99% of them are not communist Vindman-like scumbags who are going to side with this guy. God, I was actually embarrassed for Mark Kelly and Pete Buttigieg because they went on Twitter to defend Walz. Guys, you're allowed to keep your dignity despite what the Democrats tell you.
Oh, I don't know
because
about that.
They know as well.
Kurt, I need in our last couple minutes here, I need you to address, frankly, I think which is the biggest question, and that's the timing of his retirement. He's in Minnesota. He filed to run for Congress, and at the same time, they found out that his unit was going to be deployed. And by the way, I want you to know it's now been unearthed. A press release from his campaign at the time acknowledged that his unit was deployed and said that Mr. Walz planned on deploying with his unit while still running for Congress. All right, because there had been a lot of misinformation yesterday saying, well, he was deployed to go to Iraq, but then he was running for Congress, and that's why he quit the military. No, he first stated he planned on going, and then he chose not to. He quit, and his unit, the guys under his command as an NCO, ended up going to Iraq, and someone else went in his place. How does that rest with you in the grand scheme of all of these other fabrications that we're learning about?
Well, it's just inconceivable to me. I mean, I commanded a battalion. I was an acting commander in a brigade. I'm second command, and I ran it when the commander wasn't there. And it's just inconceivable to me that you would, if you could, that you would choose not to go with your unit into combat. Now, did he have a sick kid? Was he going to get rotated out anyway because his time's up? I mean, if you've done 2 years, you're probably not going to deploy with him because that's another 2 years. Commands usually aren't 4 years, or major tours aren't 4 years. It's just, but to abandon the guys that you train and took care of, it's just mind-boggling. To be a congressman? Ew. I mean, it's gross. Talk about taking a cut in prestige. It's bad, and don't listen to me. Listen to the sergeant majors, because the sergeant major mafia in Minnesota, and it is a mafia, they have no use for Tim Walz. I mean, they are just turning on him like John Kerry's fellow Swiftboat guys turned on him. It's that, some colonel, Colonel Schlichter, who cares what he says? Fine, don't care what I say. Care what the guys who served with him and had to pick up the slack for him say. And it ain't good. And you don't want to be on the receiving end of an upset sergeant major.
All right.
Wow.
At least not a real one.
All right, we're going to leave it there. I've Googled Blue Falcon. I know what it means now. Kurt Schlichter is not one of them.
Yeah, probably stay FCC compliant, buddy.
I appreciate it, Kurt. Always great to talk with you. Go to sleep now.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thanks for staying up late for us. That's Kurt Schlichter. Ahoy to you.